Hi, everybody. You are listening to the Procure Smarter podcast. We have been gone a couple of weeks, but we are back with some amazing new guests. So I hope you tune in every Tuesday for a new episode. This episode and every episode is sponsored by the ProcureSmart Purchasing Agency. If you have a new conversion, a new renovation, conversion, new construction, and you need procurement help, I ask that you give us a chance. Reach out to us. We'd love to talk to you about what we can do for you. Okay, everybody, today we are talking to Miss Monique Farley. She is the Director of Design and Procurement at hotelfurniture.com. So we are excited to have her. Everybody stay tuned and we'll be right back. Hi, everybody. We are back with the Procure Smarter podcast. And as promised, today we have two really great guests. We have Gabriel Hrecznyj. Sorry, Gabriel, I gave it my best. And Monique Farley, both of them from hotelfurniture.com. Gabriel is the lead procurement project manager, and Monique is the director of design and procurement. How are you guys?
Hello, thanks for having us.
Hi,
Yeah, I'm doing great.
This is the first time that I've had two guests at the same time, so I'm super excited to see how this goes. Okay, Monique, let's start with you. You have a crazy impressive education, starting with a master's from the Parsons School of Design, which is phenomenal. And you also have your bachelor's degree in interior architecture from the University of North Carolina, Greensboro. Not far from me. I'm a Greenville girl myself.
Yes.
Did you always know that you wanted to go down the design path?
I would say more than anything, I was always creative. It wasn't until I was in 8th grade that I got introduced to the whole world of architecture and design through my math teacher. And from there, it was just one of those things that just kind of stuck. And next thing you know, when it's time to figure out what you want to do in college or what you want to major in, I knew I wanted to pursue architecture and design. So I won't say it was always, but I guess you can still say it was pretty early on.
And Gabriel, what about you? Like, I fell into procurement by accident. Did you go into it knowing you wanted to work in the procurement role?
No, not at all, actually. I kind of fell into it as well. I just like a lot of guys growing up wanted to be a professional athlete. I was a big soccer player, traveling around Europe playing. And then I came back, decided to go to college, and still didn't really know what I wanted to do. My dad's a doctor, so I figured maybe I'll try that route. Turns out not very good at chemistry. But so I took another route, and I decided if I was gonna learn about anything in school, I was gonna go in finance. So I got my degree in finance, and then after college, I kind of found this little procurement company in a small town called Zelienople, and yeah, I kind of just fell into it. Seemed to work out. I love the competitive nature of it, and it kind of keeps my old sports mentality going. So yeah, here we are today.
I agree. I love the competitive nature of it. I always tell people I love the chase of the deal. I love finding the best deal out there. You either love purchasing or you hate everything about it. So yeah. Okay, so let's talk about. We will spend time talking about furniture.com because I want to get into your journey with that company. But there's been so much talk lately with technology changing procurement and design. And I would love to know from both of you. Monique, let's start with you. How do you see technology changing the design process?
Well, first, I would say technology is making the design process more accessible to the end user. So think about 15 years ago. We really only had HGTV, which was like the insight into what design looked like, right? And from HGTV, you've had multiple networks, television shows, things spawned from that. And a lot of that still centers around residential design, but that was literally the first glimpse into what that world looked like. So end user, you're thinking, I can only have a high-end professional come in and do the work for me. Now with technology, especially at the residential level, there are so many softwares and or platforms out here where the end user is able to kind of build out what their dream home looks like or design what their living room looks like. Now, from the commercial side of things, a lot of technology now is really being used to streamline and automate a lot of processes, just because you and I know commercial has a ton of steps before you get to the end of that project and everything is fully installed and the client is literally going through that post-op evaluation, right? There's so much that happens from the start of the project to the end. So technology now is really coming into play where it's able to streamline a lot of processes. And then you're also seeing technology being used at a greater level to actually develop materials and a lot of the fabrics and the upholstery. So there's multiple aspects of where we're seeing technology play a major role, but those are just a few of things.
No, I agree. And Gabriel, you could probably speak to this too. I have noticed in the last few years, technology has played a real role in spec writing. Like designers and purchasing agents are getting more into the nitty-gritty of raw material and how things are put together because technology is making that easier.
Yeah, it's definitely making it easier. It's making it a lot more detailed for one, which I think kind of helps everybody except for the people who have to enter the specs in.
Yes.
That makes it a little bit harder on them, but you know, it's definitely nicer to see more transparency throughout the industry, and just overall specs in general. You know, I've always been an advocate for technology. I actually heard a recent quote, you never bet against tech. And I think that's a really good sentiment to have.
I agree. I felt like technology is kind of if you don't embrace it, you're going to get left behind. And there's so much happening in the world. And as a buyer, a buyer is my background. You never know what question you're going to get asked, right? As a designer or a buyer, you really never know what that client is looking for. So technology really lets you get your hands in there and get down and dirty. It's kind of how I think of it.
Definitely.
Okay, so let's talk about what the pandemic has done for both of you. Monique, you're coming at this in the design procurement, and Gabriel, you're coming at this in procurement and project management. Now that we're starting to see people say post-pandemic, what has the pandemic taught you for both your roles? What looks different now than it did 2 years ago for both of you?
So I would say when it comes to design, the pandemic really made you reevaluate what the true needs of your target audience really were. Because prior to that, yes, you would like to say that you were in tune with the user, that you really were innovative, and that you were on the pulse of what really needed to be achieved. But I feel like COVID blew all of that up because at this point, now you're not either traveling as much as, or when you're traveling, your needs are different now that you're traveling. You're either traveling and you're confined to the hotel room more than what you thought, or either you're only now traveling more for remote work, or either you're kind of doing that hybrid where since I can't really go anywhere or I need a break from being in my house 24/7, I may book a hotel room just to kind of break up the monotony of being stuck in the house day in and day out. So understanding that the needs of the user changed and how you were going to address that, but also address that in a time where labor shortage was high, materials were running low, lead times were exponential, but you're still trying to solve a design problem and or meet the needs of your client. I really think it made you step back and take a whole nother look at how you were designing and what you were actually doing to solve the needs for your client. So for me, I think it was definitely a pause and a time to reevaluate as a designer how you're approaching projects and what your solutions were. Like, are your solutions really innovative? Are they really speaking to the needs? Are your solutions multifunctional too as well? Because before you kind of had that space where you could flex a little bit more, that you could probably incorporate multiple things in a project, but now budgets are tighter. So you have to think outside of the box. So those are some of the things from a design standpoint that really came about and was very prevalent in a lot of the conversations that I was having with others and different panels that I've been on. So I would say that was one of the main things that came about with COVID.
I agree. And Gabriel, we're going to come back to you because I want to ask you the same question. But Monique, to your point, pre-pandemic for a designer, it was almost the world is your oyster, right? If
Yes.
you wanted to source fabric from Turkey, you could get it. But post-pandemic, and maybe for a little while, from what I'm hearing, the supply's not there anymore. What you used to be able to get your hands on, you have to become much more creative for that look.
You definitely have to become creative, but then also too, there's a whole nother aspect that you would like to say was incorporated before 2019, but it's even heightened now more so than ever, which is that whole aspect of sustainability, sanitation, wellness, all of these things tie together. And when you factor those things in, it creates a whole different picture than what you had in 2019. And like I said, you would like to think that those aspects were still very much important, but now in 2022, they're heightened because of everything that we've experienced the last 2 years. You want to make sure that your space is as clean as possible, the air quality is as clean as possible. You want a place that is speaking to your mental and your well-being, just because, again, you've been either trapped in your home, you haven't really been able to do that vacation that you planned. There's so many reasons why you're needing a space that really encourages that relaxation now more than ever. So all of those aspects really play into how you view design and what you are actually incorporating in your design. And then, like you said, the world is no longer your oyster because you can't get everything in the time frame in which you would like and still be able to make your project deadlines.
Right.
Unfortunately, it's just not there right now.
Right. And Gabriel, that's a perfect segue for you, because what I want to know what the pandemic taught you, but basically we're talking supply chain. And if you don't have your pulse on supply chain today, I don't know where you're at, because it's almost impossible to get anything in a timely manner.
Yeah, I mean, where should I begin?
Yeah, where do you begin?
It's a big question, and there's not just one answer or one problem that needs to be solved. It's definitely a basket of goods. I'd say some of the bigger problems that I'm seeing is obviously having trouble getting raw materials. The labor shortage is huge. A lot of people have this idea that, why don't we just bring production back to the United States, try to do our best in doing so. And I'm all for that. I'm a big advocate of that. But at the same time, I recently spoke with a supplier and we kind of had this conversation, and he said, yeah, we could do that, but we got to find the people to actually do it. And, that's another question that needs answered. The government's response to COVID, on top of that, there wasn't very much oversight on what they were doing or where they were sending money. So now you have this influx of trillions of dollars into the economy, and no one knows where it's going, where it's at. So it's really tough right now. And because, this is a global supply chain, it's not just an American supply chain, the whole entire world's involved in it. We have no control over how China deals with the pandemic, how India deals with the pandemic, how Europe deals with the pandemic. There's no uniform across the board way to do anything like this. And everybody's just kind of stuck right now. Everybody's waiting on, what are they going to do next? What are we going to do next? And everything's just getting bottled up. And I don't think it'll last too much longer in terms of like supply and being able to get the goods. And I feel like people will start returning to some of these types of jobs. But now the pandemic has created this whole what I've heard called the laptop class. People don't want those jobs anymore. They'd rather work from home. Granted, I work from home and I really do love it. But at the same time, I think, what's that doing, to the rest of the world, to the rest of the country? And, there's no simple answer. I wish I could give you a concrete, hey, we need to do this and it'll fix everything. But too many things right now need to happen. And, we do need the world's best and brightest minds to see what we can do. And with a once in a century pandemic, I mean, nobody could have planned for this. We've modeled it, we've theorized what would happen, but honestly, until it actually happens, we don't know the impact. And we're starting to feel it now, and we're starting to see it kind of down the road. Early on in the pandemic, a little bit easier to deal with. A lot of things were already on the move. So the first year or the first couple of months was pretty easy, but now we're kind of really getting into the nitty gritty of it. Ports are getting backed up. Suppliers can't get material. Prices are too high. Everything's just falling into this basket. And I don't know when we'll come out of it, but I'm pretty hopeful and pretty confident that we'll get out of it relatively quickly.
Let me ask you this. Are you surprised, and you both can answer this, are you surprised how you had to kind of grow in your own profession to tackle this pandemic? I know from a purchasing standpoint, it used to be budgets and negotiations, but now you're very much focused on world events and supply chain and containers and warehousing and truck drivers, and Monique, you're very much focused on sustainability and cleanliness and calming spaces. Were either of you, were you surprised? How did you deal with learning this whole new set of design and procurement and working?
I would say that overall, it forced all of the pieces in the design puzzle to really have to speak to each other more. Yeah. So when you think before 2019, you could easily work on a project and solely just focus on your client, put together your specs. You would specify whatever you wanted, you hand that over to the client, and the client would then go out and look for someone to procure what you potentially specified. Or either you would just speak directly with your rep and they would tell you everything you needed to know and you were good to go. Now the conversations are a lot more extensive, and in some aspects they involve more people, because your sales rep may have to go back and confirm the information that they had. They're like, oh, let me double check. They're reaching out to maybe someone in manufacturing to see where they are in production, what they can feasibly take on now. You're having to double check like actual material inventory now. Mm-hmm. So that could potentially be another department. Now we get into the infamous, what are your freight costs, right? So now you're reaching out to a whole different department. And this is all before you finalized the specs and or the quotes to see if that's even something that's feasible for your client. So now your conversations are touching more pieces to the puzzle than what they used to in 2019 and before. So I would say more of it being just an overall education. It's really been a time where all of the respective roles are having to really come together and really work together, which, depending on where you fell in the design industry and or what your role entailed, that may not have been the case for you beforehand.
No, it's excellent. And you know what? There is a whole new generation of young designers coming out of school that are going to have to look at all those pieces that maybe they never thought of before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely.
All right. So I would like to talk about hotelfurniture.com. I'd like to know how you both ended up there. Like, what was your path? What did that look like for you? Monique, do you want to tell me?
Sure. So hotelfurniture.com, I got to hotelfurniture.com during the pandemic, to be quite frank with you guys. So I was fresh out of my master's program, and I received a LinkedIn message about this new company, and I'm just like, okay, they're telling me the details. And I was like, this actually sounds perfect. And having worked in the hospitality design industry at the brand level, I knew what that process already looked like. And I could envision so many areas where we could streamline some things, we can make it more efficient. There's just some things that we can change and shake it up a little bit, right? So after getting to meet the team and going through that interview process, it just so happened to literally be the perfect merger of all of my skill sets, my educational background, and it was honestly just the perfect fit for me. And it's been an amazing journey since then. And that was almost 2 years ago.
Wow. And Gabriel, what about you? How'd you get there?
Well, to start, it was probably the longest interview process of my life. So actually, a former sales rep at my old company had started working for them, and she had reached out to me and asked me if I would test the product because I was already in the hotel procurement and design industry. So I tested the product. A couple days, a day goes by, I get a text from her, hey, they'd like to interview you for a position that doesn't exist yet. And so I was like, well, it can't hurt. So I spoke with them. I've always been a real big advocate of the platform in general. I saw it the first time I saw it, I was like, this is the one. So I think about 6 months to almost a year goes by. I'm working at a position that I started at a steel steel mill manufacturer in purchasing. And I get a call saying, hey, we have a position opened up for you. Would you want to continue the interview process? And my answer was yes right away, even though I might have been like, let me think about it a little bit.
Right.
But yeah, and after that, it took a couple more weeks to get through everything. I know Monique's interview with me was a little bit, I'd say it was hard. She was definitely asking me a ton of questions, trying to really rattle my feathers, but eventually we got on the same page, and I'm here now.
That's fantastic. All right, well, let's talk about the platform. One of you, please explain to our listening audience what hotelfurniture.com is and how they're different in the marketplace.
Sure. So Hotel Furniture is a digital design and procurement platform. We specialize in the economy to upper mid-scale level brands when you think of the hotel industry. So think of your Holiday Inn Express, your Comfort Inns, your Fairfield Inns. We service those brand segments. So one of the things that makes us different is that we're digital and that we are big on transparency. So allow our clients to go on the platform. You can build out your preliminary quote literally within seconds. And that preliminary quote will give you a ballpark of what your new construction and or renovation project is going to cost you. From there, you'll of course build out your account and all of your project management housed in this one platform. You don't have to worry about trying to find documents. You don't have to worry about confusion on where your project is and what status your project's in. It's literally a one-stop shop in terms of procuring, design, and project management.
Wow. Okay. And I'm assuming that all of the accounting and is kind of streamlined through that platform as well.
Yes, everything is literally streamlined through that process, even the financial aspects.
Wow, that's fantastic. And how long has hotelfurniture.com been around?
So Hotel Furniture launched in 2020. The company actually started in 2019, but in terms of going public and launching, we launched in 2020.
And what do you think is happening out there that there's a need for this? And I know what the answer is, but I want to hear what your answer is because I feel like I don't want to put words in your mouth. What do you think is happening out there that there's a need for this kind of platform?
Okay, so I'll give you one of the most common answers is pricing transparency. So working and going through any type of commercial or hospitality project, and you are trying to get costs to determine what your project is going to cost you, what that total financial investment is going to be. That process for some in the past has not been as easy as what it probably should be. There's always additional fees that have been plugged into a project maybe later on. So your end user is thinking that they're only having to put this financial investment into their project, and then they get that final invoice at the end and they're like, well, this is different from what we discussed. So there's the transparency with pricing. Second, because we play in the economy to upper mid-scale level brands and we focus on your more prototypical design packages, what we're finding is that, one, we have users that find that process to be very cumbersome, just in general, like taking on a renovation. They already have a hotel to run. They're like, I don't even have time for this, right? So they need something that can streamline the process and make it more efficient and really easy for them to work their way through. So that's where our platform comes into play. And because we also handle the project management side of things, it literally becomes a one-stop shop for them. And three, the other piece that we found with our users is that a lot of this can be streamlined where it doesn't necessarily have to be manual. And because so many of our hotel owners have multiple properties, they have active lives, they are usually always on the go. Having something that is digital where they can easily access and still get work done no matter where they are has been an asset to them as well.
And I'd like to add, just from the research that I did, one of the benefits is you don't have to order a whole hotel worth of furniture. You can just get one room. If you have a flood, if you have some sort of guest damage, you can order just what you need.
Yes, we do also have a marketplace aspect to our platform that allows for those one-offs, for those unfortunate situations that just kind of come with running a hotel, where if you don't need to purchase everything for your 86 room property, but maybe you only need to focus on 5 rooms, you can definitely go on that marketplace, find the FF&E that you need, and go ahead and submit your order that way too. So we've made it where it really answers a lot of different scenarios and is very easy to work with no matter where you are in your new construction and or your renovation process.
That's fantastic. Okay, Gabriel, I want to switch back to you for a minute because you do something that I am an avid follower of, and you put out a monthly supply chain report. And I
try.
love it.
I try. Yeah, it was something that Monique and I early on kind of discussed. We were getting a ton of questions from our sales team, and as much as I would love to answer all those questions as fast as I can, we're busy just like they are. So we kind of decided that maybe like a monthly freight report, just kind of explaining the situation, what's happening, why your costs might be high here, why your freight costs are high, and why does it take so long for you to get your goods? What's the overall impact and what's causing a lot of this? And so decided to do this monthly little freight report. I wrote it up. The first time I wrote it, I don't know if anybody kind of detected this, but there was a tad bit of sarcasm in there in some of those, as in like, yeah, I mean, we have trees here. We could cut them down for wood and maybe make the furniture here. But yeah, it was just something that we thought would just help out our company, and then decided, hey, why not just release this for everybody to read? That way, anybody who wants to have any kind of clarity on some of the problems they're facing, they can, it's about a page long. It's not too long. I'm not too in depth with it, but they can get a good idea and a good grasp on their own situation.
Listen, I love it. I read it. It hasn't been, I've only seen maybe 4 or 5 reports. I don't know how many's out there, but I look for them now. I love when they come out.
Thank you.
Okay.
I want to say our first one dropped in February. So yeah, there might be maybe about 3 or 4 circulating.
Yeah, I didn't think there were that many of them, but now I'm like, I scroll for you to see, like I just read April's report. So and I use it. Hopefully you don't mind, but I take your numbers and I'm like, okay, listen what I heard today. I use they're really good.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. So if anybody would like to know more about hotelfurniture.com, who do they reach out to? How can they get in contact with somebody?
So super easy. You can literally find us at hotelfurniture.com. That is the website. And if you were to go on the website, there are 2 ways in which you can actually reach out to us. We have an active chat box that pops up on the website where you can literally type in your questions, or you can actually go to the contact section, which will give you an exact email address, hello@hotelfurniture.com, where you can also shoot an email to our team and someone will pretty much follow up with you within 24 hours. We're pretty responsive on our communication and following up with clients.
Perfect. Guys, thank you very much for doing this episode. I think it was a really fantastic episode.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
Okay, please
definitely,
hold on a
welcome.
minute.